Lesson 3-3, Multiplying Rational Numbers. So when we are multiplying rational numbers, you multiply the numerator and you multiply the denominators. So for example here, we have A over B times C over D. So when you multiply your numerators, you just multiply straight across. So we multiply A times C to get AC, and we get B times D to get BD, and then you divide that with your fraction bar. This only applies where B and D are not equal to 0, because we know that we cannot have 0 in the denominator of a fraction. So pause the video here just to try a few examples on your own. Look at the first example, 1/6 times 2/3. So if we multiply straight across, we multiply 1 times 2, which gets us 2, and we multiply 6 times 3, which would get us 18. So we have 2 over 18, but we know that we always have to make sure that we write these in simplest form. So if you divide the top and the bottom by 2, you get 1/9. The next example is 1/2 times 4/10. So you again multiply straight across. So we would have 4 over 20. We can simplify here and we can divide the top and the bottom by 4 because we know that 4 goes into both numbers, and so we get 1/5 for our final answer. If the fractions have common factors in the numerators and the denominators, you can simplify before you multiply. So when we're looking at this example, 3/4 times -7/9, we can see that the 3 and the 9, those have common factors. So you want to divide the 3 and the 9, so you're going to divide the 3 and the 9 by their greatest common factor, which is 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we have 1 is our numerator. 9 divided by 3 is 3, so that goes in our denominator, and now we just replace everything that was left. So we had the times the -7, and then on the bottom we have the 4 times the 3. So now we go and we multiply through, and we have 1 times -7, which is -7, and then you have 4 times 3, which is 12. If there is a negative in the numerator, like in this example, when your final answer, you just put the negative out front of your answer. Pause the video to try a few examples. Use the method that we just previously discussed, where you're using greatest common factors to solve each problem. So the first example is -9/12 times 2/3. You can find a greatest common factor in both 9 and 3, or the 2 and the 12. Your answer should have been, when you got your final result, 1/2. So if you found something different, please bring that to me and we can discuss it a little bit further. The next example, -1 and 5/6 times 5 and 1/7. You first want to turn these into improper fractions so that you are able to evaluate them, and then from there you can find your greatest common factor and solve. And when you finally solve these, you get -66 over 7, or 9 3/7, whichever way you decided to write your final answer. We can also use fractions when we're evaluating expressions. So sometimes there's a fraction that is replacing a variable in an expression, and we have to calculate those fractions to find the final answer. So in this example, we have 1/2 times A, which is 6/7, times B, which is -4/9. So here we're actually multiplying 3 different fractions at one time. So you can determine that the greatest common factor between the 6 and the 9 is 3. And so you can turn this 6 into a 2. You can turn this 9 into a 3, because their greatest common factor is 3, so you divide both by 3. And then the greatest common factor for the 2 and the 4 is 2, so you can divide this one by 2 and get 1, this one by 2 and get 2, and now you can just simply multiply straight across. So 1 times 2 is 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 7, 7 times 3 is 21. And don't forget you have one negative, and so your answer becomes -4/21. If you did not want to use your greatest common factors here, you could also just multiply straight across. You're going to get a large fraction, and then you simplify, and you will get the same answer as -4/21. When we're multiplying fractions by whole numbers, we have to remember that every whole number can be written as a fraction. You just put that whole number over 1. So in this example, where we have 11/20 times 255, you can make 255 a fraction by just placing it over 1, and then you can begin to simplify. There is a greatest common factor in both of these, and that greatest common factor is 5. 5 goes into 20 4 times, and 5 goes into 255 51 times. So now we can just go ahead and multiply straight across with 11 times 51 over 4 times 1. 11 times 51 is 561. 4 times 1 is 4. So you could leave it in this form, or you can simplify it down to an improper fraction, which is 140 1/4. Either of those answers will work. Pause the video to complete the lesson review. Find each product, write it in simplest form. I do want you to use the greatest common factor when it's available. So when there is a greatest common factor between a numerator and a denominator, please use that so you can get some practice, and make sure you show me this lesson review for verification. If you had any trouble on any of the examples previously in the video, please make sure you star them or circle them and ask me about them when you come for your verification.